variability, and BetNet use on malaria transmission dynamics, considering case management in low and high burden Nigeria states. And to do justice to this is Samuel Osikoya. A round of applause for him. He's wearing my kind of cap. Clap for him.
All right, so good afternoon. Standing on the existing protocol. So just before, all right, thank you, sir. So just before I move to the mechanistic modeling aspect of just like, so what we have here, all right, so it's just, it's designed in terms of poster. So maybe I will use more of key messages, so at least so that I can carry us along. So now the background is just talking about in Nigeria, um, climate drives. I'm short-sighted. All right, sorry. All right, thank you, sir. So all right, so climate drives malaria transmission dynamics across several states in Nigeria, while in some states it is highly seasonal, in some other states it is perennial. And it's very important for us to understand the association between the temporal dynamics of climate variabilities, which are specifically temperature and rainfall, and also the temporal dynamics of malaria transmission across states. So, but in this study in particular, we considered two contrasting epidemiological settings, which are Lagos State and Zamfara State. Lagos State was chosen because it has the least malaria prevalence, and then Zamfara State, second to Kebbi, was chosen as the state with high burden. So what we used was the wavelet approach, and what wavelet approach does is that it's transform the data into both time and frequency. That is, it makes us to know, one, the cycles of the epidemiological data. Maybe is it seasonal? Is it multi-year? That is, the peak that we observe in epidemiological data, is it something we see just once in a year, or we see it across years? And also, it also helps us to know the timing. That is it between what we observe, maybe between 2015 to 2018, from 2018 to 2021, and all of that. So first, what we did is to look at Lagos State to decompose the climate data, which is the temperature, the rainfall, and also that of the malaria into their wavelet spectrum. So what we see here is the pattern of rainfall in Lagos State, and what we observe here is the fact that it is annual. It have annual cycle, meaning that every year, once in a year, rainfall reaches its peak once in a year in Lagos State, and similarly also for temperature, also in Lagos State. Then one would have expected that maybe the cycles, the frequency of the peak observed in Lagos State, as far as malaria transmission dynamics is concerned, should also be highly maybe annual. But what we observe is that we have transient cycles in Lagos State. We have annual, we have semi-annual, we have multi-year cycles across the study period, which is a kind of contradiction to what we observe between the climate variables. Whereas when we come to Zamfara State, we notice, one, for the temperature in Zamfara State, we observe two cycles. We have the annual cycles, and we also have the semi-annual cycles. What does that mean? It means that in Zamfara State, we have two peaks of the temperature. Or in Zamfara State, we have two peaks. And also for the rainfall, which is what we have in this diagram here, we observed at the beginning of 2015, because the span of the data from 2015 to 2024, at the beginning of the data, what we observe is that we have annual cycle, but moving close to 2021 up to era of 2024, we observe the emergence of a semi-annual cycle, which is giving us a kind of glimpse around a change in a shift in the regime of rainfall pattern in Lagos State, which is not clearly observed in Lagos State. And that is what these other two diagrams are just showing us: two cycles of temperature. Then we have a two cycle also, but the annual one is most prominent. But towards the end of the data, we observe a semi-annual cycle. And concurrently, simultaneously, when we look at the malaria transmission data, what we also observe is that at the beginning of 2015, what we see in this place, we observe a kind of annual cycle. But simultaneously, just like what we observe in the rainfall pattern, we also observe a semi-annual cycle in the malaria dynamics, in the malaria temporal dynamics of Zamfara State. And this has a lot of things to tell us, even though why we are not using this to show a kind of relationship between the climate variables and malaria and malaria transmission in both states, but it's giving us a kind of association that exists between them. So there are other things that are done, but are not clearly shown on something here. But one of our key findings is that, one, in Lagos State, we do not have consistent annual cycle, just like we observe in Zamfara State, and that establishes the fact that malaria is highly seasonal in Zamfara State. What we observed in Lagos State was a regular pattern, but in Zamfara State we observe a kind of regular pattern. And apart from that, for the two states, we observe that rainfall is the dominant proximate climate driver in both settings, but temperature scales are quite variable. And the observation from Zamfara State have some implications on some of the interventions that are being deployed in the state. For instance, now, SMC is one of the interventions that is deployed following some protocols. I think it follows a kind of 4-monthly cycles, and there are some studies that are trying to also maybe extend it to maybe 5-month cycles and all of that, in order to catch some dynamics of transmission of malaria in across some states. So one of the things we observe here is that the second cycle that we observe, which is a pattern we observe from the rainfall and the malaria, is suggesting to us that if these are not studied deeply, there can be mistimed intervention. That is, the SMC deployed could catch up with the first peak, but since the second peak is coming up later, if SMC does not cover that, it may be giving us a kind of less effectiveness of SMC. Why? Because the second peak is not captured maybe by the program. And apart from that, it is also giving us the fact that the climate is also showing us climate regime shift. That is, the emerging semi-annual signal implies structural reorganization of transmission timing, and not merely just a kind of amplitude change. And that is what we observe in Zamfara State. So one of the things I want to state clearly out here is that why we have irregular patterns in Lagos State, we have a regular pattern in Zamfara State. And the change in the patterns of rainfall that we observe is calling our attention to also maybe evaluate interventions that are highly climate sensitive to see their effectiveness in the face of these changing patterns of the rainfall that we observe in Lagos State. So I'm going to stop here for that. So now please the second one, please. All right, so on this one, we're talking about modeling the effect of climate variability and bed net use on malaria transmission dynamics, considering case management in low and high burden Nigerian states. Yes? So these are just the presentation outline. Next. So now, despite significant progress in scaling up control intervention across states in Nigeria, I'm very sorry that. All right, oh, thank you. So sorry, I may be moving here and there because, let me say, physically I'm short-sighted, so I can't see this screen here. So that's why you see me moving all around. I can't see this. I can see the screen, but I'm not seeing the writings on the screen very well. That's why you see me moving around there. So thank you so much for that. So now, despite significant progress in scaling up control interventions across states in Nigeria, malaria still remains a major public health challenge. Nigeria has just concluded its 5th malaria strategic plan, with a reported reduction of malaria prevalence from 50% down from 45% in 2010. However, accelerated progress in reducing morbidity and mortality due to malaria contributed by distribution of bed net, use of ACT, seasonal malaria prevention, which is SMC, and IPTP as plateaued according to the WHO report in 2025. And we also have it that from the report of the World Health Organization World Malaria Report of 2025, made us to understand that Nigeria accounted for 24.3% of the 282 million global malaria cases and 30.3% of the 610,000 global deaths. This stagnation is compounded by converging challenges, among which climate variability and change are increasingly recognized as modifiers of intervention effectiveness and malaria transmission dynamics. For instance, in Nigeria, regular use of ITN is undermined or challenged by climate variability, because we have seen studies carried out in Nigeria, even I think by Malaria Consortium, which shows to us that the thermal discomfort as a result of heat limit the use of ITN. So for permit, I will still be using LIN because of the way I've presented it. So these challenges underscore the need to understand how rainfall and temperature influence intervention effectiveness across epidemiological settings at the subnational scale to provide evidence-based support for climate adaptive control strategies. So this is the aim of the study, to evaluate the state-specific effect of climate variability and long-lasting insecticidal nets on malaria transmission dynamics in low and high burden Nigeria states. So these are the two questions we'll be looking at. What are the effects of LIN on uncomplicated malaria incidents in Lagos and Zamfara State under local rainfall and temperature conditions? What is the magnitude of temperature attributable residual malaria transmission in Lagos and Zamfara State despite LIN protection? And the objective just corresponds to the research questions. So one of the things that motivated this study is that we have seen studies that establish that, okay, maybe rainfall, temperature impacts malaria transmission and all of that, but could not quantify how much this climate variability affects intervention effectiveness. And there are studies who have been speculating that, climate may affect the effectiveness of intervention, but the question has been how. And that's one of the things we try to capture in this particular study. So here is just information about the study area, Lagos and Zamfara State. Lagos chosen as because it has the least malaria prevalence, and Zamfara, just like what I've presented in the previous study. So this is the data we use: monthly uncomplicated malaria incidents that cut across 2015 to 2025, and climate data that were obtained from the Era 5 land, global climate, and also from the CHEP repository, and the malaria prevalence data obtained from the MIS, and then airline access and usage data also obtained from the MIS and DHS data. So one of the things we try to look here is that what is it that affect the use of ITN among those with access. So this is just showing us the plots, the time series plots of the data that we use in this study. So this is the model that we use. So the upper part is for the human population, while the down part is for the mosquito population. And I have to say here that we incorporated the climate, which are the rainfall and the temperature, through the dynamics of the malaria transmission. One, through the parasite development rate, the female adult mosquito biting rate, mosquito mortality rate, egg deposition rate, and the mosquito development rate. And also, the rainfall-dependent functions were also captured. The rainfall was also captured using rainfall-dependent carrying capacity. Ecological memory also was put into the model as to explain the fact that the carrying capacity we see today is not just as a result of the rainfall that falls today, but because of the antecedent one. And also, we also included the treatment due to ACT, temperature-dependent usage of LIN among population with access, and also we also cater for the effectiveness of the LIN due to based on their durability and repeated distribution or campaigns. So this is just the methodology we use in the model fitting. We use the Bayesian reference through the Markov chain Monte Carlo sampling implemented through STAN in the HARC software. So we fitted the model to the entire data sets. We also fitted it to the reported cases of malaria treated with ACT, and also we fitted it also to the malaria parasite prevalence in the two states. So here is the outcome of the fitting. What we have on the left here is for Lagos State, while the other side is for Zamfara State. So this one is just to show us the output of our model. Then another thing, so the next thing we did was now to quantify the effect of the climate variability on the effectiveness, on the population level effectiveness of LLIN across each of the states. So this is the fitting of the model to the malaria prevalence, the first one for Lagos State, while the other side for Zamfara State. So in order to assess the airline attributable reduction of malaria and influence of temperature on the effectiveness of airline, we carry out counterfactual scenario. So I call them the A, B, and C. The A represents counterfactual scenario where airline use was set to 0 while retaining the treatment with ACT, rainfall, and temperature. The B part is talking about the baseline conditions, including both airline use, treatment with ACT, and the influence of rainfall and temperature. Then the C, which is also a counterfactual scenario on the use of airline without thermal influence. That is, we look at the scenario where the presence of temperature does not impart the use of bed net, that is, no thermal discomfort. So in order to quantify, one, how many cases were averted in the states, and then two, the magnitude of residual malaria transmission attributable to thermal discomfort as a result of heat caused by temperature. So here, what we have here is the trajectory that we obtain from the model. What we have here is for Lagos State. The second one is for Zamfara State. So the black line that we see is the scenario where there is no use of LLIN, while the middle one, which is reddish in color, is the case of the baseline where we have the use of LLIN modified by temperature. Then we couple with the use of ACT and also the local climate. Why the purple is the scenario where the use of LLIN among those with access was not impacted by temperature or thermal discomfort. So these are the three scenarios that we have here, and we are using these three scenarios to quantify some important metrics. So here we have estimated malaria cases averted, accounting for the influence of temperature, and the cases lost to thermal discomfort. So the A1 is where we have no use of, where there was no use of airline across the study period from 2015 to 2025. While the B part is the baseline, which incorporated the existing dynamics of malaria in the two states. The C is a counterfactual scenario where we have everyone with access to the net made use of it without being impacted by temperature or thermal discomfort. And one of the things we notice is that for Lagos State, when we look at A minus B, in order to see case of malaria averted as a result of the use of LLIN, we saw that about 0.96 million were averted across the study period from 2015 to 2025. And in Zamfara State, we have about 21.83 million cases averted as a result of using LLIN. But when we look at A minus C, which is talking about what if there was no thermal discomfort, if there was no influence of temperature on the use of the LLIN, we saw that 1.64 million cases will have been averted across the study period 2015 to 2025, and in Zamfara State, the cases will have been 30.90 million cases across the study period. Now, what we are looking here is the first plot I showed us, because I need to explain this to avoid a kind of confusion. So what I showed here first, I need to state it clearly that we have accounted for the report rates, because what we have here is not what is available, it's not what happened entirely in the state, because the data here are reported data, and we know that the reported data is not actually the actual cases of malaria that we have in the two states. All right. So, but when we now look at cases averted attributable to temperature, that is the B minus C, we have that 0.68 million cases of malaria were lost as a result of thermal discomfort in Lagos State, and 9.07 million cases were lost as a result of thermal discomfort in Zamfara State. So key findings in Lagos State: current LLIN use prevented a median of 0.96 million uncomplicated malaria cases relative to a counterfactual scenario without LLIN, corresponding to a population level LLIN protective effectiveness of 1.7% in Lagos State. But for Zamfara State, we saw that the LLIN reduced malaria cases by an estimated 28.5%, accounting for the influence of temperature on the net use. However, without the influence of temperature, the reduction would have been 40.4%, suggesting that 11.9% of protection was lost due to thermal discomfort, translating to approximately 9.1 million malaria cases. This result suggests that estimating malaria attributable reduction of malaria without accounting for the impact of climatic factors on control intervention may lead to overestimation of cases averted by LLIN. And apart from that, the temperature attributable residual malaria transmission highlights population-based protection loss, indicating the need to design measures to maximize gains in future plans, especially in high transmission settings. Our results show that temperature impacted the airline attributable reduction of malaria cases in both states is consistent with existing studies. A study in Nigeria showed that 1 degree Celsius increase in mean temperature a month preceding surveys was associated with a 9% point decrease in LLIN use, according to Abeku et al. So our study is not without limitations. One, we have assumed homogeneous population within this study, and number two, we have not accounted for seasonal malaria prevention in the model, and then the use of IPTP, and then our recommendations include behavior change, communication, intervention timing, and evaluation surveys should explicitly account for seasonal and epidemiological heterogeneity across transmission settings based on what we find out. The National Malaria Elimination Program should consider mass distribution campaigns of airlines in low-body Nigeria state to mitigate the risk of resurgence as existing nets continue to age beyond their operational lifespan, particularly given that the last Lagos distribution was in 2011. Since high temperature significantly reduced airline use, programs should integrate climate-sensitive approaches in states like Zamfara. Examples include promoting nets with improved ventilation and exploring alternative protective tools during hot seasons. So the studies demonstrate that while airline remain a cornerstone, but we have to also know that their effectiveness is significantly undermined by thermal discomfort, especially during hot season in states like Zamfara State, which is high burden and arid climate zone. In Zamfara, a high body setting, about 11.9% of airline protection was lost due to heat, resulting in an estimated 9.1 million additional malaria cases. This finding highlights that climate variability is not just a background factor, but a direct determinant of intervention success. However, in Lagos State, we need to understand that the low airline effectiveness that we recorded in Lagos State, which is 1.7%, does not mean that maybe airline is not effective, but this is due to the fact that the last time the program, the mass campaign was conducted in Lagos State, as far as airline is concerned, was 2011. If there had been other rollouts, we would have seen more of the impact in Lagos State than what we saw in our results. However, tackling the challenge of thermal discomfort, without tackling the challenge of thermal discomfort, the full potential of airline may remain unrealized, especially in high transmission regions. And with this, I want to acknowledge the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who funded this project, and also the WAMCAD, the ICAMDA group, our further investor Yekiti, the Hamnet, the Northwestern University, the Malaria Consortium, and also the NMEP. With this, these are my references. With this, I want to say thank you so much for your
Thank you. A round of applause for him. Clap for him again. I like your first recommendation. I like it very well. Clap for him again. That justifies my observation in the course of the last presentation before you came on board. So clap for him again. So we've heard him. I want us to be time conscious when we're making contributions. I noticed that we're not doing well with time now. We did well before the tea break, and afterwards we've been losing a lot of time. So if you have comment or question, I will want you to go straight to the point. If you are making a comment, with references, just go straight to the point. So let's allow rigmaroles rest on their own, right? So we'll go straight to the point and keep it short and brief. We call it KISS in broadcasting. Short, keep it short and simple. So we get to the point and then we manage our time right. So please, yes, okay, thank you, Doctor. I want to ask, do we have questions, comment? Okay, we have Doctor here. So I want to start with you, so please keep it short and simple.
Yes, because I'm seeing the first person to use data from. I just want to ask you, because in your methodology, there is a little that you mentioned about how you process your climate data. And you said that you use Errorland and shapes for rainfall and Errorland for temperature. So what kind of temperature do you use in Errorland? And why Errorland? Why not Error 5 and single level instead of Errorland? Why shapes? Why not Tamsat? Why not Fuse? Why not GPM IMAG? So, and you are just in two domain, a point of in Samfara. You didn't use the whole of Samfara, and you didn't use the whole of Lagos in data. So how do you retrieve your data set from ECMWF Errorland? Do you retrieve in GRIB? Is your GRIB in 1 or in GRIB 2? Or do you receive in a CDF? And when you do that, how do you now extract your ASCII out of it to be able to do this computation? Why I'm saying this is for you to have that information that you need when you are talking about climate data set, you need to be explicit about the time of initialization, what time of initialization was your data. Because in ECMWF, they do error 5 error analysis 4 times. So, and you should be able to tell me that, oh, this one is at this time that I'm using. And I extracted this time for my mean temperature so that I will use it as mean temperature from error 5. So I just wanted to know that, okay?
Clap for doctor. He asked question and he answered it himself. Clap for him again. Okay, comments. Remembered case.
Okay, thank you very much for, I hope, all right. Thank you. So, we've just received a professorial question. You will deal with it. Thank you, Prof. Looking at it from the program side, I have picked serious interest in the conversation around rainfall peak. And from what, the finding is showing is like there is an emergence of some patterns, like we're having to peak. And I think as a country, and I mean, you researchers, we need to keep an eye on that evidence. If it is sustained, it's going to change a lot in how we plan. And what is the background to this? Very recently, we know how the funding landscape has been. And SMC, before 2022, WHO would say 4 cycles. But by 2022, there is an update to that guidance to say you can have 3 to 5 cycles, looking at effectiveness and optimization. So it's a big conversation in the country. So I want us to keep an eye on that to see maybe we'll be having 2, tailored intervention in that kind of area. So I think this evidence NMP needs to, my guys here, we need to keep an eye on it. Very interesting. The second presentation around temperature and behavior. You see, we've been talking about behavior all along. And I'm really impressed with this research perspective. Because we've been asking, how do we improve behavior? Why are people behaving the way they are? And this is a very major evidence. We've been saying it, heat, but we've not seen that structural evidence. Data speaking to what we all seem to know. Okay, so, and with this, I think is a key findings that we need to really commend your work. And probably now we can now push it over to material science researchers. Maybe it's time to even reconsider the materials that are being used for ITN. Because we just got back from the science from defeating malaria quote, and we saw Eolin recycling these materials now. I didn't bring it here, into towels and fabrics. So maybe it's time we need to extend some of this evidence and the material science guys to accommodate this heat, effect and increase use. So I want to thank the researchers for trying to give us explanation why people are not using the net. So those are my remarks.
Thank you. Question, comment in the room? Online. Online participants, please, if you have questions, let's have you. Can we see the chat box to see if you have any comment there? Media team chat box, please. Can you take us to the chat box? Okay, those online, if you have questions or comments, you may unmute and talk to us before we check what is in the chat. Comment online, do you have any question or comments? I'm working assiduously to ensure that I send your tea break, please. No, that's what I'm saying, I'm working assiduously. No, we'll come to them, we'll come to them. So if we don't have comments online, please, you may respond to the two that you have already. Okay. Oh, no problem. The mic is on your table.
Sorry, Tolu Lokbefabimi once again. Sorry, I'd just like to chip in at this particular time that I remember while I was listening online on my way here, well, somebody mentioned the alignment of the entire project to the Nigerian Malaria Operational Research Agenda. And I've been sitting here and listening, and your last presentation actually, to leverage on what my colleague here just mentioned, yeah, is beginning to shed more light and a newer perspective to what's been the practice. So leveraging on that now, I would really want to suggest that let's find a way where Prof and your team, I know we're in a lot of expert groups within the program, well, we'll just share ideas that this should come to the fore. So maybe like get to, Professor Wellington Oyibo, who chairs the Malaria Operational Agenda working group. Yeah, you could just, let's have this, just so, as soon as possible. Because the idea is to encourage information like this coming out from the academia, just so that it's not just basically the routine things actually that we're doing. This is shedding more light. In fact, one of the major things you mentioned here is the pattern, the single peak, now that it's been peak of rainfall that's observed in Lagos, and then the near almost 2 in Zamfara, which is more like a reversal of the previous knowledge where they say you have the double maximal rainfall down south, and then it's single here, So these are information that should get into the mainstream just so that at least we interrogate it, and then it helps in, kind of charting the direction, in terms of what the malaria control effort is going to be. Thank you very much.
Let me just quickly answer because I'm here.
All right.
If not, I won't. Because I have 35 years of experience in metrology. So we call it modal rainfall pattern. In the south, generally, between latitude 6 to latitude 9, a little bit below, the rainfall there is bimodal. Abuja is peculiar in nature. Its variability is complex. And Lokoja, they might take bimodal today, and next year they will take a unimodal. But absolutely, from latitude 10 to latitude 14, it is unimodal. If you consider analysis that is based on seasonal, that is, their peak of rainfall occur in August. Definitely, it can't be more than August. Then, in the south, it will occur around May, June, September, October. what malaria is doing is that in the north, malaria is lagging. The maximum occurrence of malaria lags by about 1 or 2 months in the north. But it sinks in with the monsoon evolution in the south. So the climatic change or the complexity in climatic variability is what I think this consortium need to understudy very well, and you have to know it very, 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 very well, so that it won't come from one single assumption. That is just what I want to know. That there is no change. Zamfara cannot be bimodal. If it is bimodal, then something is wrong in what kind of data that you may use. That is just what I want to say.
Now, like considering there is difference between climate change and weather. Now we are experiencing, like currently I was going through what was going on in UK recently, because the temperature is getting high and then there are mosquitoes. Now in UK there are about 30 species of mosquito that is like
native of that
native of
native,
UK.
so, yeah.
And they are popping up now, and then there are also migration going on. People are moving. Now somebody can have dengue asymptomatic or malaria and all of that, and then before we know it, things will start getting to change. Now the disease, like we are not seeing in some places, may start coming up there. And then there are also flies. House flies are running very fast in UK now. They are entering our seas, and that can also bring other like disease like salmonella and all that, food poisons and all that. So now, because the models we are using, they are not fixed. They are dynamic models. Now I think we need to start doing a rethink in terms of now what we know, what we used to know, and then what is going on. Because with the advent of wavelet does what most of the existing models cannot do. Yes. So, and we have published some of this. I'm going to show maybe later some of this work in top journals. And these are things that, we are, in terms of the timing of, what's it called? The frequency, the timing and then the frequency of the malaria that is being controlled by some of these climatic variables. So now what we are seeing now may not actually be what we used to see before, based on two things: the data, three things: the data, then two, the environmental factors, and then three, the kind of methods that we are using now is different from the method. I can bet you there's nobody in Nigeria that is working on wavelength. Nobody nationally. We are the first set of center in Nigeria that will be working on wavelength. So, and we are using it because we know the power. Like you can see, it's because some of the things he presented were ahead. You will see everything clearly there, and some of these results have been published. So we are not making claim to what we didn't really see. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Before you respond, please, my apologies. Dr. Fidelis Okechi, representing Professor James Ajay of the National Mathematical Center, Abuja. He is the coordinator mathematics program. Step into the room. You're welcome very much, sir. Yeah. Okay, yes. So thank you for joining us. I'll get back to you before we talk to the persons online. So just respond to what you have.
Okay.
Your questions.
No, I think what he said was not like it's not more like a question, no, because
okay,
no,
you don't have
there
any
were comments.
questions. Okay, there were comments. Okay.
They were just comments.
All right.
Yes.
So thank you. Are you good now? Can we check what's happening online? First, let's go to the chat box and see if we have any question or comment for us. There wasn't. Okay. So online, do you have comment or question you may? Yeah, he said there's nothing in the chat box now. That's what Prof said. So you can just unmute and drop your comment or question if you do have one. Patient Evans online, Benga online, Flora online. Do we have any question, and the rest of us online? So, well, I think there's no question for you online. So we call it a day? So there's a round of applause for him. Thank you. So we move to the next item. Should we move forward? I want to, on your agenda, we have the next presentation, and it's focusing on an integrated climate-based modeling and monitoring framework for malaria control in Sokoto State. And Stephen Ifeanyi will be doing presentation on that. Stephen Ifeanyi, are you here? Ah, you're quite a young man. Please, a round of applause for him. You may use this. If you're standing, you will want to go mobile. You may use this. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Stephen Ikediashi. A master's scholar at the. I'm a master's scholar at. I'm a master's scholar at the International Center for Applied Mathematical Modeling and Data Analytics, Federal University of Ekiti, and I'm being supervised by Professor Bakari. Over the next few minutes, about 15 minutes, I'll be presenting on basically talking about how we can